name is Pamela Smart. I've been incarcerated since 1990. I was convicted of being an accomplice to murder, and I'm serving a life sentence without any possibility for parole. I've been incarcerated in New York State for nearly 30. I'm myself responsible for something I desperately didn't want to be responsible for. My husband's murder. I had to acknowledge for the first time in my own, mind and my own heart how responsible I was, because I had deflected blame all the time. I'm respectfully asking for the opportunity to come before you, the New Hampshire Executive Council, and have an honest conversation with you about my incarceration, my acceptance of responsibility.
I sat down, interviewed her in prison, and she told me she will never admit to planning that murder. It's been 29 years. Is it time to just admit you did it and say you're sorry?
Again, I don't think so, because I don't think that a person should admit to a crime they didn't commit.
Would it be worth it to admit it, even if it would just help get you a hearing?
To me, no. I wouldn't be able to reconcile that and live with myself. I'm saying this is my fault.
What about those people who say that's not enough, though?
I don't know if anything I ever do is going to be enough.
You're never going to say it. You're never going to say, I told them to kill my husband.
No.
So even in this new letter, it doesn't seem her position has changed at all. She just says she accepts her role in the crime. And one thing to note, all four of those men convicted in the actual murder, including the one who admitted to pulling the trigger, they've all completed their prison sentence.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We got to get into this right away. After years and years and years of denying, not admitting to fault, Pamela Smart has finally taken fault, admitted to her role in the murder of her husband, Greg Smart. She finally admits to wrongdoings after 30 years. Now, why this case captivated America for sure is because it was the first time that cameras were actually allowed in the courtroom. Pamela was about 22 years old at the time of the murder of her husband. She was actually a New Hampshire high school staff member, and she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole in the connection with the murder of her husband, Greg Smart. This was about 3 decades ago. Now, this also involved 4 other individuals, children. Pamela Smart essentially used Billy Flynn, 16, and 17-year-old Patrick Randall to break into the home where Greg Smart was living on May 1st. Randall reportedly held Greg down in the foyer while Billy Flynn fired the shot, killed him. Pam Smart first met Billy Flynn when he was this 15-year-old student at the high school. She was a 22-year-old media coordinator for the high school. Prosecutors claim that during her trial that Pamela eventually seduced Billy. And while under her spell, she convinced the teenager to kill her husband, Greg. She was worried that a divorce from him would cost her everything. As part of the plea bargain, Billy Flynn testified on the stand against Pamela and basically said that Pamela would use the relationship against him and threaten to end it if Billy refused to kill Greg for her. In addition to Patrick Randall and Billy Flynn, there were 2 other teenage accomplices that were identified on this case. Vance Latimer Jr., he acted as the getaway driver, and he was sentenced to life in prison as an accomplice to second-degree murder. Raymond Fowler, who waited in the car and received a 30-year sentence on charges of conspiracy and attempted burglary. Despite her public denials of having something to do with the setup of the murder of her husband, Greg Smart, Pamela did confess to a young intern. There was a teenager who interned with Pamela, and basically this teenager turned into the Star's prosecutor witness at Pamela Smart's trial. Pamela told the intern about the murder scheme and following Greg's death. And the intern made a secret recording of Pamela threatening, if you tell the blank truth, you'll send me to the slammer for the rest of my life. The rest of my blank life. Now, let me just say, every time that I research Billy Flynn and Pamela Smart, there's always, this media has painted this narrative of he was this young lover. You know, that could have been the case, right? He could have been in this relationship with Pamela Smart, but it wouldn't have been a consensual relationship because he was a minor. So let's point something out here that happens. And maybe this is definitely the 1990s, very much earlier. I was a child then. People would glorify this idea of a young boy having an affair with an adult teacher and it calling it an affair, a young lover, when in reality, if you step back and really understand brain development, consent, how all of this goes, manipulation, coercion, we all know that Billy Flynn could have been coerced, manipulated. This is abuse, extorted, exploited, push. Essentially, this would be like child abuse, pushing this young child to commit this murder and really like pedophilia. That's what it seems like to me. She was sleeping with this young boy, her being 22. He's 16, 22, married woman. Like, keep that in mind. To me, the way I see it, she manipulated this young boy, but he also suffered the consequences of this because he was found guilty of second-degree murder.
That time on the phone, I called her and she got mad. She said, you know, when she was saying that's it between us, she said, because, you know, I can't go on seeing you like this and not, you know, being able to stay with you and having to go home to him because of the way he treats me.
All right. Breaking off the relationship would have devastated you, right?
I did not want her to break off the relationship, correct?
You had, for lack of a better term, an obsession with this woman?
Yes.
You thought about her all the time?
Yes.
You thought about living with her all the time, right?
Yes.
You thought about the fact that you were separated from her because she was married?
Say that again?
You were separated from her because she was married. She's in Derry, you're living in Seabrook, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You thought about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Would that help fuel your hatred and your anger too?
I wanted to be with Pam, yes. I didn't want to kill Greg either, though.
Greg was in your way, right?
Greg was in my way?
Yeah, I mean, as long as Pam was with Greg, you couldn't have Pam, right?
No, as long as I didn't kill Greg for Pam, I could be with Pam, but she threatened to break up with me.
So you're telling this jury that the only reason that you killed Greg is because you loved Pam. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's because Pam told me to, and I loved
Now,
Pam.
Patrick Randall was also convicted of second-degree murder for the role that he played in Greg's death. A judge sentenced him to 40 years, but the sentence was later reduced, and he was released on parole in 2015. Billy Flynn was also paroled around the same year, 2015. And he has been quoted saying, "I will always feel terrible about what happened 25 years ago." He told the court of shooting Greg, adding, "Parole will not change that." Notice how in 2015, the difference between Billy Flynn is that he's actually taken responsibility. He says to the court, "I will always feel responsible for what he did, and parole's not going to change that." He committed a crime, a horrible crime, where he was as a child, okay? But Pamela Smart continued to deny her role, her orchestration, what she had to do until recently. And we got to talk about that. The accused getaway drivers, Fowler, Vance, were both released on parole in 2005. Now, Pamela was convicted in 1991 of being an accomplice to the first-degree murder, and she had remained locked up in a maximum security prison in New York, Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. She was transferred there about 30 years ago for security reasons. Now, the judge has consistently denied her commutation requests. I mean, a judge recently denied the latest request for a reduced sentence in March 29th of 2023. Now, Pamela Smart, since her being locked up, has become an ordained minister. She wrote to a supporter that the death penalty would have been more merciful than her life sentence. Nothing will ever never be enough for New Hampshire to say I'm a human being deserving of anything more than being locked up in a cage like an animal for the rest of my life, she wrote. The problem with Pamela is that she has spoken out about her relationship with her, I hate saying the word relationship, it's really abuse. That's what it is. Pamela has spoken out about her fling with Billy Flynn, who shot her husband, but she downplays the role in the murder. She told a news outlet, I am so much more than the worst mistake of my life. She said this in a 2010 interview. And I feel like I've been frozen in time inside that mistake to get involved with Billy Flynn, and I have never been able to get out of it. Despite the confession, until recently, she has always insisted that she had nothing to do with her husband's death. I never wanted to kill Greg. Yeah, but she also didn't stop it. I never wanted him to kill Greg. I never asked him to. I never insinuated that I wanted him to kill my husband. So back in 2010, she basically would say that the murder was a result of a terrible judgment by an immature, selfish young woman. However, officials back then, when she was attempting to get this reduced sentence or whatever, they felt like she just never really, there was no sincerity of her. She never showed remorse. And this is why she's always kind of been denied. Now, we were talking about this on a live, but we were talking about the various movies that have spun out of the Pamela Smart case. It inspired To Die For, which was a book that was published in 1992, and then it turned into the movie with the same name in 1995, which starred Nicole Kidman and Joaquin Phoenix. And then Helen Hunt also had the lead role in a made-for-television recounting of the crime Murder in New Hampshire, the Pamela Smart story.
The saga inspiring movies like To Die For.
Did you get the gun?
Yeah.
The story continues to fascinate true crime fans to this day. And you know, it's so true, but it's like, what can we learn from the Pam Smart case? Because, you know, we still see the situation where you have, in more than one occasion, you've had teachers that have had affairs with students, or I hate to say the word affairs, but have, I don't know, pedo desires towards younger students while they're married or whatever it may be. I mean, these cases are so regular. Of course, they don't take it to murder, not all of them, but this is like the emotional manipulation that happens. You had the case of Billy Falau and Mary Kay Letourneau, who passed away a couple of years ago. And we've talked about that a couple times. There's this fascination that happens in this glorification of young boys getting with older women, especially if they're a teacher. And it's so interesting because back then I remember us talking about it as a society in media, but never really like coming to the core of how do we prevent that? What do we do? Because every day we're seeing these stories. And to me, as a mother of boys, that does kind of concern me. I know it concerns some of you guys. I've heard of people opting to just homeschool their children, boys or girls, because again, this could happen to a boy or a girl. But the grand majority of the cases that we've seen in the media, it's typically a female teacher hitting on a younger student or a boy, manipulating them to do something, and then this huge controversy happening. In the case of Billy Falau, you know, married Mary Kay Letourneau. You know, they had children, 2 daughters, and it's been a case that has fascinated a lot of folks because I personally think as an outsider, we wanted to further understand what happened there. Billy Falau married his abuser, although he never identified her that way. But you do have to wonder what were his long-term issues, because he has discussed this publicly in various shows.
After Letourneau's death, a source told People that Falau gained perspective about his relationship after the separation, saying he sees things clearly now and realizes that this wasn't a healthy relationship from the start.
A lot of this brings a lot of issues to the forefront. So Pam Smart did a very short video in hopes that she would receive a reduced sentence, something would happen, and she's hoping that somebody's going to hear her out. But before we even go to that video, let's go to her 2019 interview. Okay. And this was an interview she did in 2019. Now, here we are. That's 2019. We're in 2024. What do you guys think is going to be different now? Where does she stand? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
My name is Pamela Smart. I've been incarcerated for 29 years of a life without parole sentence. I have been portrayed as Black Widow, Ice Princess, a killer, and none of those things could be further from the truth.
She was cast as the seductress.
She said none of those things could be further from the truth.
Turned murderous mastermind, caught in the middle of a media firestorm.
Guilty or not guilty of the offense charged?
Guilty.
Pamela Smart, convicted of conspiracy to murder her husband in 1991. At the young age of 23, sentenced to life in prison without parole for manipulating her teenage lover, Billy Flynn, into pulling the trigger.
This story had it all. A beautiful young woman, a seductress of a young teenage boy.
Now, nearly 3 decades into her prison sentence, she still maintains her innocence.
Did you mastermind the murder against your husband?
Absolutely not. No.
And argues that whether or not you believe she's guilty, her sentence of life without parole has robbed her of any chance at freedom.
Whether you believe she's guilty, her life sentence has robbed. Okay, keep that in mind. So this is why I think Pamela Smart is now changing her tune a little bit about whether she's guilty, where she stands, how she feels about this whole situation. I don't feel like none of this is authentic. So I think what 2019 was, what about a couple years ago? What changed? Is it the fact that she realized you're going to have to take some accountability, lay out the role that you played in this crime in order for you to be released? Is that what I'm hearing? Are we changing our tone? Is that what it is?
Even as the admitted triggerman is no longer in prison.
I'm not asking the world to relitigate my case and to judge whether you think I'm innocent or guilty. I'm asking if this is the kind of justice that people want in America.
Is this the kind of justice you guys want in America? Just let me know.
Detectives arrest all 4 boys and discover that 3 have a connection to Pam Smart. They attend the high school where she's working as a media coordinator.
I met Bill, who was kind of making me feel like I was the greatest thing on the earth.
He was charming.
He was, and I guess at that point I was so low that I needed that boost.
Police are then led to another student named Cecilia Pierce, Pam's intern at the high school. Their interview with her appears in a documentary on Discovery ID called Pamela Smart, an American Murder Mystery. She tells police that Billy and Pam were lovers.
They were friends and they were having an affair.
How did you find out about the affair?
Came from the shooting of the Bill. And I was being in sex because I worked at home.
Bill Flynn was a juvenile, just 16 years old.
You were technically an adult and he was underage.
Absolutely.
That relationship seems predatory.
It was totally wrong.
Very predatory. It wasn't just totally wrong. It was predatory. She knew what she was doing.
Celia reveals that she has heard the whole story, the conversations between Billy Flynn and Pam, and that she's heard that Pam wanted to get rid of Greg.
We're going to conduct an audio surveillance of when Pamela Smart using a confidential informant.
They decide to ask Cecilia to get wired up, wear a taping device under her clothes.
Pretty much, they established that, yeah, you had to kill. Why, though? Like, you know, because they can't think of any other reason why they'll never do it. Yeah, but even if I ask you to kill somebody, you have to be doing and saying, okay, I will.
She doesn't break into tears. She doesn't deny it. Nothing. That's very telling.
If you tell the truth, you're probably going to be arrested. And if you get out of that, you're going to have to go and you're going to have to send Bill, you're going to have to send me, you're going to have to send JR, you're going to have to send me to the slammer for the rest of our entire life. And unfortunately, that's the situation you're in.
My great brilliant idea that I had was that I was going to go in and have these conversations with her to make her feel like more comfortable so she could tell me whatever she was going to tell me. All I wanted.
So her idea was to set up this witness so that it would make her more comfortable, so that somehow the narrative would have been swayed over to her. Like, does that sound like to you guys that this would be somebody who was innocent with the way in which they would move? I don't know. All this planning and plotting. Now let's go to this video where she actually accepts responsibility now. Recent video. Let's go.
My name is Pamela Smart. I've been incarcerated since 1990.
Pamela Smart is one of the longest-serving female inmates in New York, nearly 34 years, for conspiring to have her 16-year-old lover and his friends kill her husband, Greg.
I found myself responsible for something I desperately didn't want to be responsible for, my husband's murder.
For the first time on camera, Smart accepting full responsibility for the 1990 shooting death in her latest plea for freedom.
I had to acknowledge for the first time in my own, mind and my own heart how responsible I was, because I had deflected blame all the time.
Let me stop right here. Okay. I have to acknowledge how responsible I am. Break it down for me, Pam. Break it down for me a little bit more. You had an affair, or you were perpetrating on a 16-year-old boy, right? You convinced the 16-year-old boy and his friends to commit this crime. Like, I need you to put some of these words in there so we're not putting them in there for you. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let me know.
For 3 decades, she's denied her involvement in the crime, never saying that she orchestrated or even knew about Greg's murder. Her longtime lawyer today going a bit further.
And by the way, it's been multiple times that she's denied. She's denied it. She's denied it in various media interviews. She has tried to make her case. Okay, so this is interesting.
During the course of the trial, the state actually presented evidence that we would probably embrace, wherein she was the ultimate cheerleader. Pam would not disagree. She was just feeding and feeding and feeding throughout the course of not just a day or two, but weeks that led up to the death of her husband.
Paul Maggiotto, prosecutor.
So is the attorney saying that cheerleading, meaning like she was telling Billy and the others, like, or Billy specifically, like, she wants him dead, she wants him dead, this did happen? Like, are we saying that this did happen? She might have not been the one that pulled the trigger, but she also didn't stop it, and she was wanting this to happen, right?
Prosecuted Smart's case.
She's just like the mafioso boss who isn't there necessarily when the hit occurs, but who's ordered the killing.
Yes. We're speeding?
Smart's refusal to admit her role in the murder has been a stumbling block to potential clemency. I interviewed her for the first time face-to-face in 2019.
Did you mastermind the murder against your husband?
Absolutely not. No.
She honestly was.
She didn't even let her finish the sentence. Absolutely not. No. Did not. Didn't even let her finish the sentence, yo.
Was involved right up to her neck in the murder of Greg. And she willingly and honestly has confronted that and has admitted that.
Before the trials of O.J.
Hold up. That is what the attorney's saying. I want to hear what Pam is saying. Like, I want to hear it from Pam this time. Not from the attorney, from Pam.
Smart, now 56, pleading for a hearing with New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, hoping to have her sentence of life without parole commuted.
I'm respectfully asking for the opportunity to come before you, the New Hampshire Executive Council, and have an honest conversation with you.
She's been in prison a long time. She's got nothing to lose here.
In 1990,
All right. She's been in prison a long time. She has nothing to lose. What do you guys think? Do y'all support that? Do you support that she should be released? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you are thinking, okay?
all teenage accomplices took plea deals and testified against Smart at trial. Court TV capturing a pivotal moment.
She told me if she think the back door is unlocked, not to hurt a dog, and that we could ransack the apartment, the condo, take what we wanted, and wait for Greg to come home. And when Greg came home, we would have killed him.
The two boys who committed the crime, Flynn.
So she's admitting to that too? I just want to make sure she's admitting to it all, right? Like, she's admitting to being, is it a cheerleader or the mastermind? Because I think a cheerleader is one thing, but she was both, in my opinion. She didn't stop it. She cheerleaded, mastermind, did both. So she's admitting to that too. I just want to make sure, Mr. Attorney, Pam.
The question that she had Greg Smart murdered. And until she does actually say that she planned it and made the kids do it, then I will never be okay with her getting out of jail.
That is fair. She needs to admit to that part. Because she didn't stop it now. The attorney said cheerlead. She masterminded the whole thing. She'd been talking about it for quite some time. And she disassociated. Maybe she did disassociate herself, but it doesn't mean that she's not guilty of the crime.
Most recently talking with Pamela last year by phone from Bedford Women's Prison.
What exactly do you think you're responsible for when it comes to Greg's death?
I'm responsible for not picking up on the warning signs that were there when Bill was becoming more obsessive and unhinged, for not doing something about it, for becoming involved with him in the first place. I was married. I should have been better. And because of my failures, Greg, an innocent person, is no longer here.
That was 2023. I didn't pick up on the warning signs that this child that I was perpetrating on he was becoming obsessed with me. So she was still deflecting, still gaslighting the shit out of it, the whole situation. You still place blame. That was a year ago. A year ago, you guys. So right now, she's going to say and do what she needs to do in 2024. Yeah, is she 50 plus? She's got nothing to lose. I don't know. Right?
She's never looked the camera in the face and said, yes, I got my lover, Billy Flynn, to kill my husband. Until she admits responsibility, I would say no one is entitled to have their sentence considered.
Everybody loved Greg. He had the prettiest smile, and he was a jokester, and he loved life, and he didn't deserve to be murdered.
Pamela's attorneys point out she's earned multiple graduate degrees, is an ordained minister, and a model inmate.
She guides other inmates. She helps the correctional officers at the facility. She mediates disputes. She literally saved another inmate's life.
That's great. That's awesome. That's amazing. That's, I believe in second chances. I believe anybody can be rehabilitated, but you're talking about, this is a little bit of a different crime when it comes to murder, right? Like, and the things that she did, and also perpetrating on children because she did that, I want to know your all this is just my opinion. I have a different opinion, I think, because I've seen this woman lie to the media multiple times. So I maybe I just have a different feeling about it. But y'all think that this woman is rehabilitated? Okay. It took her years to finally admit, and even then, she's still not even all the way admitting to exactly what she did.
Smart has asked for a hearing to lessen her sentence 3 different times. Each time, she's been denied. In 2019, I asked her about one of those failed appeals.
What does redemption mean to you?
It means that we don't define people by the very worst thing they've ever done in life. It means that people change, people grow, and they evolve over time.
Smart's attorney saying if she gets a hearing, she'll be forthcoming.
We invite all of Greg's family.
If she gets a hearing, she'll be forthcoming. Oh my God. She should have been forthcoming from the jump. Are we trying to coerce the judicial system? Or, excuse me, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. If I get a hearing, I'll finally tell you what y'all been saying, and y'all been saying correctly. And you guys have all known. I'm just only going to reconfirm the fact that it was all me, that it was always all me.
To be at that hearing, we invite them to submit questions to Pam, and Pam will answer each and every one of them.
Reacting to Smart's most recent appeal, Governor Sununu telling ABC News, New Hampshire's process for commutation or pardon requests is fair and thorough. Pamela Smart will be given the same opportunity to petition the council for a hearing as any other individual. But Greg's uncle says it'll take more than a hearing to change his mind.
I'll go to my deathbed believing that she shouldn't be out until she admits what she did.
Do you guys think that she's doing this because she knows that this is her last ditch effort to plea for somebody to let her out? What do you guys think?
For me, that was really hard because going into those places, in those spaces is where I found myself responsible for something I desperately didn't want to be responsible for.
But the family of Greg Smart says they're not buying it.
Ooh.
While I was watching the video, I was waiting for her to
finally admit for 34 years what she has denied. And unfortunately, she just danced around it once again and just takes full responsibility for I'm not sure what.
Thank you. This is what I got too. I didn't feel like she really went at it. So, as we're watching these older videos of her, adamantly denying it and then putting it back on Billy or putting it back on whatever might have been the issue. She doesn't fully admit like what is going on. The attorney's like, well, maybe you cheerleaded. No, she did it. She might have not pulled the trigger, but she planned it. She told the teenager how to do it. She told one of the co-conspirators how to do it, what to do. Take everything that you want from the apartment. Of course, I'd like to hear what you guys think about this whole situation. Please put a comment, hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you guys on the next one. Rabbits out. Bye, guys.